7 of the most awakened minds who ever lived are about to answer the exact same question. Ramana Maharshi, Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Rumi, Meister Eckhart, Krishna. And the question is one you already carry. I feel trapped in my own ego, what do I do? Not summarized, not interpreted. Their own words, first person, as if you had asked them yourself tonight. You've meditated, read the books, sat the retreats, done the breath work, maybe even the plant medicine, the shadow work, the entire toolkit. And you are still you, still irritable in traffic, still checking your phone for a hit of validation someone else controls, still afraid, somewhere underneath all that awakening. So either you're doing it wrong, or there was never anything to get, and you've spent years chasing a ghost with excellent taste in books. Here's what's strange. The ego hasn't gone anywhere. It's just learned better vocabulary. Stay for all 7, because what they refuse to say will tell you more than what they do. Ramana Maharshi answers, stuck, trapped. Tell me, who is it that feels trapped? You already assume there is a you walking a path, with distance still left to cover. That assumption is the prison, not the ego itself, but the story that the ego is something to defeat. I won't hand you a practice. I'll hand you a question, hold it like a burning coal, impossible to keep for long. Who is aware of this feeling of stagnation? People describe their spiritual life to me like a road with mile markers, years of practice behind them, some invisible finish line ahead. I have never found that road. I have only found the one who imagined it. Follow that awareness back, not with thought. Thought built this cell. Follow it with bare attention past every answer your mind offers until you reach the one who was asking in the first place. You won't find a self there. You'll find that the self you were so desperate to free was never holding you at all. Jesus answers, you're trying to save your own life, and that is exactly why you cannot find it. I watched men give away everything, nets, trades, families, and still walk away sad, because I'd asked for the one thing they were still counting, their progress toward God. You're counting too. Days meditated, books read, inches gained on some invisible ladder. Underneath all that counting sits a very old fear that you are not enough as you are and must earn your way back to what you already are. So I didn't come to teach self-improvement. I came so you could die before you die, so the seed stops insisting on remaining a seed. Consider the birds, they store up nothing for tomorrow and still they are fed. You've built an entire granary for a harvest of holiness and forgotten how to simply open your hands and receive what's already falling. Stop improving the one who is stuck. Let him die. What rises isn't more spiritual, it's simply free. The Buddha answers, you've made a subtle mistake, the same one I made for 6 years before I sat under that tree. You're craving liberation. And craving, no matter how refined its object, is the very fire that keeps the wheel turning. The feeling of being stuck is a sensation. It arises, it has a texture, and if you actually look rather than think about looking, it passes. You are not stuck. A feeling of stuckness is passing through what you are. Don't fight the ego. Don't indulge it. Watch it the way you'd watch weather cross the sky, with interest, without owning the storm. There is no self-riding on top of these experiences, desperately trying to escape them. There is only the escaping itself, mistaken for a self. The raft that carried you across the river is not something you carry on your back afterward. Even the Dharma is meant to be set down once it's done its work. Still gripping the raft on dry land, of course you feel like you're not moving. Sit, breathe, watch the craving to be free arise and let even that go. Lao Tzu answers, I watched water for most of my life and never once saw it struggle to find the sea. It followed the shape of the land, yielding where yielding served, and in yielding carved canyons no stone could resist. You want to conquer your ego the way a general takes a city. But the ego doesn't fall to force. Force only gives it something to resist, and resistance is what makes it real. The uncarved block is strong because it hasn't yet been shaped into something useful. You keep trying to carve yourself into a more spiritual object. The block was never lacking anything before the knife touched it. Stop gripping the wheel. Your stagnation isn't a wall in front of you, it's your own hands, clenched around a wheel that was never yours to hold. Open them. Let the Tao drive a while. You'll be shocked how far you move without moving at all. Rumi answers. You think you're locked outside a door and you've knocked so long your knuckles bleed. Beloved, look down. The key's been in your pocket the whole time. You've just been too busy studying the grain of the wood to check. This wound you carry, don't rush to heal it. A wound is where the light gets in. I didn't become a poet by escaping my longing. I became one by burning in it until nothing was left of me to burn. You want a technique? I want to sell you your intelligence and buy you a little perplexity instead. I was a respected scholar once, robes and all, until a wandering stranger looked at me, and something in my chest cracked that no study had ever touched. Reason walked me to the edge of the ocean and, very politely, refused to swim. Stop being so clever about your own liberation. Fall down. Let the ache undo you completely. What survives that fire was never the ego, it was only ever love, wearing your name as a disguise. Meister Eckhart answers, you are still seeking God as something outside yourself at the end of a road. As long as there's a seeker and a thing sought, there will be distance, and distance always feels like a prison. I'll tell you something that got me investigated by Rome. Your works don't make you holy. You make your works holy by the ground you act from. Let go of your idea of progress. Let go even of your idea of God. The concept isn't the reality. Only a finger pointing at the moon, and you've spent your whole life kissing the finger. Sink beneath your own soul, past every image, into what I call the Godhead beyond God, the nameless ground where nothing is achieved, because nothing was ever missing. I once said the eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. One eye, one seeing. If that's true, and I staked my life on it, there was never a gap for your progress to close. There, your stagnation was never real. Only the watcher counting his own lack was real, and he too dissolves. Krishna answers. Arjuna stood on that battlefield paralyzed, not by cowardice but by attachment to outcome. He wanted to know the war would go well before he was willing to lift his bow. You're doing the same thing. You won't act freely on your path because you're still negotiating with its results, waiting to feel free before you're willing to walk unfree. Here is the teaching I gave him, and I give it to you now. You have a right to your actions, never to their fruits. Practice your practice. Sit your silence. Do the work. But release your grip on when the ego will finally loosen, because that grip is the ego, wearing the costume of a seeker. I told Arjuna nothing about how the story would end. I told him only that a warrior who waits for certainty before drawing his bow has already lost the one thing that was actually his, this moment, fully inhabited. Perform every act as an offering, without the anxious accounting of how close you are to done. The stagnation you feel isn't the distance left to travel, it's the toll you pay for keeping score. That was the question. Those were their answers, not mine, not some modern teacher's paraphrase of them. 7 traditions, 7 centuries, 7 entirely different names for God. And notice what none of them told you to do. Fix your ego, defeat it, perfect it. Every one of them in his own tongue said some version of the one forbidden thing. Stop trying so hard to arrive, because the trying is what's keeping you exactly where you are. Maybe you were never stuck on the path. Maybe you are the path, momentarily convinced it needs to go somewhere else. 7 men handed you a mirror, not a manual, and asked you to stop polishing it long enough to see what was already looking back at you. This is Ask the Masters. 1 question, 7 voices, no filter. If there's a question you want the Masters to answer next, leave it below.